So there's a quote that says, men chase women, not the other way around. And it goes on to say some other things, but I don't want to talk about that. What I want to focus on is this idea of men needing to chase women. And the reality is that many of you have been told that, to let that man chase you. And you're trying to figure out, how do I make that work? How do I make this happen? But there's a lot that comes with this that I don't think is being properly explained. And I want to dive deeper into that. Now, this video was prompted because I received a DM from a young lady who came to me about her struggle with being told that when she meets a guy that she really likes, that you should make him work for you, because men appreciate what they have to work for, you know, what they have to put energy into. And she said the struggle is for her that she doesn't want to have to make a man do that, because it's in her nature to want to love and pour out. And she feels like it's such a conflicting thing that she has to basically fight herself on. So she wanted to get my guidance on it. And I said, okay, you know what? Let me do a video and she encouraged it, because the reality is that so many of you are facing this issue or being told this is the way to go. So I'm going to give you the ultimate answer, but let's start breaking this stuff down. So number one, let's talk about the idea that men are hunters and they like a challenge. So here's the thing. In general, this is a true statement. What I mean by that is, yes, I do believe that most men, the average man, is wired to desire a level of challenge, wanting to conquer something. This feeds a man, you could say, his ego. It makes him feel accomplished. He feels good. And so a lot of men pursue this, or pursue getting this fix, so to speak, in various ways. Some men are very much into sports, and this is where they can get that challenge and that chance to conquer something. They may get into fighting, like boxing or UFC or all these various things, right? And another common one that you see a lot of times is men playing video games. Because the reality is that in playing video games, and I'm not sitting here saying men should be all consumed by video games, because I know some of y'all hate it, right? I'm just saying that the reality is that many of them find that challenge in the video game and that chance to conquer. But the problem is we're applying this mentality and this truth to relationships. And this is where things get a little tricky. Because let's go back to the example of men liking video games. So picture it for a second. Man, young or old, whatever, into his video games, finds this new video game that he wants really bad. And his whole thing is to beat this game. And he may spend days and hours and weeks and months just trying to pour everything into conquering this game. And then once the man finally reaches the pinnacle and beats the game, what does he do? He throws the game away and looks for a new game to play. So for you as a woman to believe that men want a challenge and something to conquer and something they have to put their work in when it comes to relationships, where you're asking him to transfer this mentality he has with video games onto you. Do you want to be conquered then thrown away? Because when you look at situations where men have chased women, this happens a lot. It gets to a point where he goes super hard trying to get you. He'll jump through all your hoops. He will, run through any obstacles you put in his way. And we will discuss later in the video what's driving a man in many cases to do all that. Because it's not what you think. So please keep watching. But he does all that, finally gets the woman, and then now the effort stops. Now it's your turn. Because in that man's mind, once he's conquered his game, once he's conquered this challenge, he's supposed to just reap the rewards. It ain't no continuously working. Working for what? I did all the work to get you. Why do I need to keep doing all this work to keep you? That's how he's going to process it in many situations. Now, are there exceptions to the rule? Yes, but those exceptions usually aren't healthy. And again, we'll get to that. So I bring this point to you to make you aware of the fact that when we're talking about relationships, romantic, healthy relationships, we really should not want or encourage men to approach it from their innate desire for challenge and conquest. because that does not transfer well into romantic relationships. And here's another reason why it won't transfer well, in the sense of why it doesn't work out this way, is because once a man is emotionally invested, and when I say emotionally invested, more specifically, he is in love with a woman, or he is deeply into a woman, all right? He is emotionally invested to where he is now emotionally vulnerable. This idea of him wanting to chase and have a challenge goes completely out the window. If you were to survey men, and I'm saying you can go talk to men who are family members, friends, whoever, who have ever been in love. And this is very important. You can't ask a man who's never been deeply into a woman, because again, he in that situation may remain in that conquer mindset challenge, and he'll actually validate this idea that men just want a challenge. No, talk to a man who's been deeply in love or into a woman and ask them, did you want the woman you were deeply into to be a challenge? Did you want her to make you chase after her? You're going to get no's. The majority of men, if not all of them, will say no. Because now when you are in that state of being emotionally invested, because let me back this up a little bit, because some of y'all may look at chase very differently. One, remember that chasing is very much a one-sided affair, all right? It is essentially, there is resistance on one side, or there is, as I mentioned earlier, obstacles that one may put up because you have to pursue the, and again, these words, pursue, chase, all these things, I feel like they get really mixed up, and that's what changes people's perception of it. So let's throw away the word chase for a second and just look at it like this. If you make the man have to jump through hoops, if you give him resistance, if you are not making a mutual effort with him, this will all fall under the title of chasing, as I'm speaking about it. And when you are doing that to a man who is actually serious about you, your resistance hurts. Your resistance makes him question, are you really interested? Your resistance can give him flashbacks to the last time he got played. And we'll get into that as well. So much goes wrong now when this is being applied to someone who is serious about you. If you're just trying to make the guy who is just infatuated with you, who just wants to have sex with you, let's just call it out for what it is, then it doesn't have the same downfall. It doesn't have the same issues, but that already is an unhealthy dynamic, all right? But when you're doing it to the guy who cares genuinely, you're going to set yourself up for more failure. And so you've got to really ask yourself, again, if it was you, if we turned the tables, would you want a man who you're really into to make you chase him? Of course not. Now, again, some of y'all might say, well, we're the women, he's the man, so it's different. I get it. But again, when we're applying love, genuine interest, being actually emotionally invested on this level, nobody wants to deal with that. So you run into a lot of problems, and you start to plant a lot of negative seeds when you embrace this mindset of cheating. So going back to the question that the woman in the DMs asked me, when a man is the right guy, you don't have to do all this with him. But I'm going to put a pin in that. I'm going to explain more of that later. Let's break down more of this making him chase you. So a second thing I want you to consider with this whole make him chase you ideology is that grown adults don't have time to chase. All right. Now, I'm not trying to say that to be insulting to anyone who believes in chasing. I'm saying that to break it down like this. What I have observed in all my years of doing this is that the willingness to chase and the embracing of this dynamic decreases with age. And we're going to speak specifically to men's willingness to chase the woman. When the man is young, so let's start as early as high school, he's much more willing to do this whole chasing thing. Why? One, because he hasn't been hurt yet. And when a man hasn't been hurt yet and he meets that woman he's all into, whether it's real love, whether it's infatuation, whatever it is, he does not have the trauma, if we're going to call it for what it is, that will cause him to be more hesitant and less likely to pursue when he feels like he found something special. So in his youth, he's willing to go all in. Not to mention, well, let's stay with that for a second. But as that man gets older, and the likelihood of him having been put through the ringer more, having gone through more experiences where he may have been let down, he may have been hurt, or seeing other men get hurt. And I'm sure for some of you, this all sounds familiar because for many of you, this has been your trajectory. Where when you were younger, you were much more open to love. If you think back for many of you, not all, because there's a lot of other issues that happen to some people in their childhood that changes the direction of these things. But for many of you, that first love, you were much more willing to dive head in first. But as time goes on and you experience more, you become more hesitant. You become more cautious. And I think, unfortunately, women don't understand what men are going through as well, or have gone through, many of them, that makes them just as scared, just as hesitant, just as cautious. And where they have seen this chase that they once engaged in backfire on them, all right, in many different ways. So again, as he gets older, his willingness to engage decreases and decreases and decreases. And I think some women are thinking, well, no, if he finds the woman that he is so serious about, nothing will hold him back. Because I'm sure you've heard that. When a man wants you, nothing will stop him. I'm sorry, that's not true. That's not true as we age as adults and we go through more things and people have gone through experiences that they have not healed from. Now, this isn't to say that the men should not go get healing. It isn't to say that they shouldn't be at a place where they are less fearful of pursuing love or something special. But it's to speak to the reality of what so many are facing and why this chasing dynamic does not work. Or it causes, and it causes all kinds of other issues. Now, another aspect to, as the man gets older, he has less of a willingness to chase because he's now gone through more. Well, also because as he gets older, in most cases, not all, he has more responsibility. There's more on his plate. There's more he has to concern himself with. So when that guy is young, whether it be high school or college years or whatever, and maybe he doesn't even have a job yet, okay? Or he does it, it's part-time, whatever. He got all the time in the world to chase. He can pursue you in all the ways that you want, call you all the time. And for some of you, you may have gotten so conditioned to that treatment that as time goes on, you kind of forget that, it's going to change as a man gets older and is doing more with himself. So now he is not in the same position he once was to even engage in this level of quote unquote chasing. And when you add less time to even trauma as well, well then here we go. A man's willingness to have to do this is like, no, I'm not going to do it. So we've got to realize that this is not, and I'm going to use the word game. We shouldn't be playing any games. And if you've been watching my videos, you know I don't advocate for games. I advocate for going about things in a healthy, loving, positive manner so that both sides can win in this and both sides can receive what's truly best for them. But again, this chasing thing is a game, but there's more for you to consider. So this is going to piggyback off where I kind of just ended with the last point. Let's talk a little bit more about the man who has time to chase versus the man who does not. So one of the unfortunate things I see a lot of women do, and I want to encourage you to stop doing it, all right, is basing your decision on the man you'll be with. You're allowing your decision to be based off of who is showing you more effort. Now, hear what I'm saying, because I don't want that to be misconstrued. Because of course, every man who is serious about you or who claims to be serious has to be willing to put forth effort, all right? He has to be willing to pour into you, no doubt. There's no excuse for that. I'm not making, whatever. That has to be there. However, when I say choosing the man who makes more effort, let's put it in a more specific example. So again, let's say a woman, she meets two guys. They're both really great guys, both really nice guys. And let's just say one is a little bit more desirable. A little bit more desirable. Let's say he's a successful man. He works a lot of hours. He is less available. He is putting forth an effort, but again, because he has less time to give, it's not as much as the other guy who's a great guy, doesn't have as much going on as far as work and success. He has more hours available to give. And in those more hours available to give, he's calling a lot more. You know what I'm saying? He's want to see you a lot more. He just has more time. And so a lot of women will say, well, this guy wants me more, so I'm going to be with him. All right? Even though despite they may have a greater desire for the other guy, even though despite they may feel something stronger both ways with the other guy, but the guy who is pursuing you more feels safer. Because again, he's putting forth all this effort. And since he's willing to chase, all right, because let's just say you're showing them both a little bit of resistance because you want to see if they step up, so to speak, if they chase. And the guy who has less going on does. But what you aren't realizing is that, one, the safe choice is usually the wrong choice. Almost always the wrong choice. So if you're choosing guy A, guy making more effort in this example, then you're choosing him for the wrong reasons. And it's going to be a setup for disaster. Because there is not a mutual desire strong enough from both sides that will sustain this relationship. You're really banking off of his strong desire to carry this relationship for y'all. All right? You're willing to give something, but he doesn't open your whole heart up to him. He does not do that for you. All right? And so you're also possibly going to overlook the fact that, again, his extra effort doesn't always equate to genuine, true love or desire. Because think about this for a second. How many of you have either been in or seen a woman dealing with a toxic man, and that man won't let go for nothing? He will chase her to the end of the earth. He will hold on for dear life. Is that because he loves her? No, because once he has her, he continues to mistreat her. He continues to be toxic. So clearly, this is not love that's driving him. It may be infatuation. It may be because he needs her in certain ways. And that need makes him say, I will overlook the fact that I have to be the one to keep drawing her back in, because he is focused on what he is going to receive by getting you. How the fruits of conquering having you back in his life. All right. The man who loves you or who's genuinely into you is not just worried about what he gets from you. He's concerning himself with what he's pouring into you. And when you're resistant to that, or bottom line, when you're resistant to that and he has to chase, that again hurts a lot more. All right? Because he wants you to receive him. Think about when you are really into someone, you want them to receive your love. And when they're holding back, they're kind of blocking it off. And that makes anyone, I don't care who you are, that makes you feel some kind of way. That can happen in romantic relationships. That can happen with your children. You name it. No one wants to feel like the person they're trying to pour love into is being resistant to it. All right. And again, when we're talking about grown adults and romantic relationships, that will make him question even more. Does she even want me here? So while you're evaluating these two men on who's giving more effort, you don't realize that the one who really cares is evaluating yours too. And he's not seeing someone said the word wrong. He's not getting the reciprocation, all right, that he's looking for. So therefore, that messes with his head. He can't do this. The guy who just wants to, I was going to say own you. And I really want to use that word because I feel like some of those guys, that's really in their head. They want to own and control you. So they don't care what you're not giving back right now, because they know once they have you in their grasp, they're going to get what they want out of you. And that's simply unhealthy. So all that to say, when we fall into this mindset of the chase being what shows that the man is serious about, that's wrong. And we have to go deeper than that to understand which is the man you should really be with. Because again, I've seen this happen tons of times where men choose that woman, where women choose that man who's doing so much, but they're blind to the fact that what his intent is not coming from the right place. And they're confusing that with actual love. So now, again, there's so much to unpack. So we got some more to talk about. We're going to keep this going. So the next thing I want you to consider. So I've been studying these relationships for a very long time. And I've seen 3 reasons why a woman allows a man to chase her. All right? I'm going to give you 2, and there's a one we're going to wait till the end to dissect. But let's start with the first one. The first one is because you're not really that interested in him. So let's talk about it. So here's the thing. One thing I've seen with women is that when you're really into a guy, when you really like him and you believe this is potential, you have to fight yourself to not do too much, all right? Y'all are literally in the mirror coaching yourselves like, girl, don't call him. Don't do it. Hold on. You're calling your friends, hoping they'll talk you off the ledge. You are fighting the urge to want to pour in because you're excited. There's something there. You feel strongly, even when it may not actually be real love. If you have a strong enough desire and have a high enough value of this man, you are a little bit more antsy to want to do because it's part of your nature to want to pour into someone that you highly desire, care about, in love with, whatever the case may be. So when you are able to sit back and do nothing and let this man, quote unquote, chase you, a lot of times because you're not really feeling him like that. A lot of times it's because you're convincing yourself to give him a chance. And you're allowing his willingness to chase to validate that chance, to validate how far you'll go with him. Because again, it is kind of a safety valve for you. Well, if he does chase me that much, then he must really want me. So I think I can give him a shot because this should be safe here. But no. But again, going back to the main point, ask yourself, how interested are you in him? Now, here's the unfortunate reality. There have been millions of women who have married a man they weren't truly in love with. There have been millions of women who have gotten in, who are currently in relationships with men they are not truly in love with or even deeply into. I got stories for days of what women have allowed into their lives or the types of relationships they have accepted for various reasons, all right? And it isn't to come down on y'all, it's to point out this reality in hopes that you will not continue that pattern or fall into that pattern, all right? But this happens all the time. And so you got to be careful. And part of what contributes to that, again, there's various things, like sometimes because he's chasing or because he's showing so much effort, you may have family and friends try to convince you, he loves you, he cares about you, you should be with him, blah, 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 blah. And I don't say blah, blah, blah to be, I don't want to come off a certain kind of way, but at the same time, it's blah, 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 because though they have good intentions, they're setting you up for failure. And many women succumb to that pressure and accept that man without the proper foundation, and then the whole thing blows up. And then I have to say this because then society sees these examples, not knowing what's really going on behind closed doors, not knowing the missing ingredients that always were missing, that were known to be missing, having this information, just seeing what was presented on the surface as this quote unquote great looking relationship that all of a sudden falls apart, and now people become jaded to love. They become jaded to relationships. They think this doesn't work for anybody. No, it doesn't work for so many because so many are taking the wrong approach. Because so many are overlooking the essential things that need to be in place to have success. Because people are rushing into situations they don't belong in or settling in situations they don't belong in. And that's why I do videos like this, because I'm trying to help stop that. Because if we can, then we can have more healthy, successful relationships. But ultimately, for this point that I'm making is that, yes, you have to ask yourself, if I'm so cool with sitting back and making him chase me, why? I got some other reasons why, but again, one of those questions has to be, am I really into this man? Because if you're not, why even try to gain his attention? Why even try to go down this path? It's a setup for disaster one way or another. All right, so now here's the second reason why I see a lot of women letting a man chase her, is because it's a defense mechanism. Plain and simple. So let's just say you are into this guy, all right? You are feeling him, so that's not the problem. But you're still in this mindset of he needs to chase me. Why? Why is because to you, again, you're looking for his chase to validate opening up to him. You're looking for his chase to validate embracing this relationship. You're looking for this chase to give you some, I have to use this word, false sense of security. That he is safe and that you can trust that he desires you enough that you think that gives you either a better chance or that, you can feel confident that he won't cheat on you, he won't betray you, whatever. Because like if for him to want it that bad, he must not be trying to mess this up. And unfortunately, that's not how it usually plays out. A lot of times the same dude, and again, it's not to say every man who chased a woman turns out to do some horrible stuff, but there's tons of examples of it. Because again, you have to ask yourself, what makes a man even chase? We're not even going to get, I've mentioned it a little bit, infatuation, obsession, and there's some other things, but let's get back to defense mechanism. So again, I've seen women sometimes when I've talked about these things fight me so hard on, no, these men need to chase. They're soft these days. What's wrong with these men? Be honest. You are doing that because you don't want to have to put yourself out there. Let's be real. And I understand. I get it. But let's not try to hide behind these ideologies that don't truly apply here, that aren't truly efficient, that do not prove to be highly successful, when the reality is that you are just trying to protect yourself. But you have to understand, I say it all the time, the same walls you have up to protect you are the same walls blocking your blessings. If you are acting out of a defense mechanism mindset, then the reality is that you have been hurt and you have not healed. All right? And if you want to have a healthy, successful relationship, you have to heal. You cannot stay behind that wall and think it's okay. And here's something that's hidden in my spirit that I have to mention. You think that if you let him chase you, that this will give you the green light to accept being with him. And you think that would mean it would earn your love, it would earn maybe your femininity, it would earn these things that he wants, right? And then as long as he's doing what he's supposed to do, you're good. But that's the problem. As long as he's doing what he's supposed to do, if you have not healed whatever that thing was that caused you to have a wall up, caused you to have a defense mechanism, then at some point in the relationship, you're going to be triggered because he is a human being who will make mistakes. There is no person, no one who will be 100% on point for the rest of their life. It doesn't happen. It does not exist. So the minute this man does anything wrong, it could be a genuine mistake. But the minute he does anything wrong, the minute he does anything that reminds you of what you've been through, your wall will go back up. And now you will validate to yourself that I am allowed to keep my wall up because you messed up. But he can't win that battle because your wall was created from your past hurts. He may have, again, triggered it to come back up, but he didn't create it. But he sure as hell paying the price for it. And so now y'all going to have this issue and this clash and everything's going to go left. And again, you will not be able to have a successful, healthy relationship. His chase does not chase away your past disappointments. It doesn't chase away the trauma you've been through. He cannot get that out of your system. Only you can. So you got to be willing to check yourself and say, okay, I got to come into this healthy. And if I am, again, using this, a man must chase me, and be honest with yourself, as a defense mechanism, then we need to get to the root of that issue and make some changes. All right. So I know I'm giving y'all a lot. All right. And remember, I do this with love. I care about y'all. So none of this is to make you feel, well, maybe it's to make you feel some kind of way, but in a good way. But it's not to hurt you in any kind of way. But anyways, so here's the other thing that I want you to think about when it comes to making this man chase you. The reality is that in engaging in this dynamic, you're not being true to yourself. And what I mean by that is this. Again, and let's be more specific. When you're engaging with a man who you actually really like and you're really into, what did I say earlier? There's a natural desire for most of you, if not all of you, to want to pour in, to want to do, to want to show up and be more present in that situation. And you making him chase is you fighting yourself to not do what comes natural to you, which now creates conflict and stress within you. All right? So let's put him to the side for a second. Think about the times that you have gone through playing these games of, I'm not going to call him, I'm going to wait till he calls me, or I'm going to make him do this and make him do that. How at peace were you during those situations? How comfortable were you during those situations? I would bet for the majority of you, if not all of you, it wasn't comfortable. It wasn't peaceful. It was stressful as hell. You didn't enjoy it. The only time there was any enjoyment was if he did actually do the action you were hoping for. Like once you finally got to that result, you can like let out a sigh of relief. But in that process, you were fighting yourself and it did not feel good. Why do that to yourself? It's not worth it. You know what I'm saying? And by you not being true to yourself, so not only are you stressing yourself out, making life more uncomfortable, and that can lead to a lot of other issues, physical ailments, you name it. But then because you're not showing up as your true self in the situation, you don't know if this man is really falling for who you really are or who you're presenting. And so if he, let's say, for example, likes the version of you that you've been showing that doesn't really hit him up and just lets him call you when he calls you, so to speak, right? And then now when you guys finally get a relationship, you finally want to be because naturally your real self is going to come out at some point. Now you start blowing this man's phone up because that's who you really are. Who you really are is you want the good morning call or text. You want to be checking in several times a day, whatever. And I'm not talking about whether that's right or wrong. I'm talking about some of y'all. That's what's important to y'all. Now he's like, this is too much because you weren't showing him this. So he thought he was getting that. And he was comfortable with that. This now is making him overwhelmed and uncomfortable. Now we have a new clash. Now we have fighting. Now the whole thing falls apart. We could have saved you all the drama and headache if you were just your true self from the beginning. We could have better evaluated if this man is truly for you and in alignment with you if you were just being yourself from the beginning. Now, I know what I'm hearing in my head, some of you are asking is, well, I like to give and pour in, but I don't want to be doing too much. And I do think there's a level of balance we can find in quote unquote doing too much. And I think I'll make a different video for what is doing too much, so to speak. But let me just say this. I do think that, again, the key is he reciprocating when you are doing? So it's not simply about don't do because you don't want to do too much. When you see women doing so much for the man, the problem is they're doing so much for him and he's not pouring back into her. So it's like you're letting your desire to give blind you from the fact that he doesn't give back. That's the problem. Because if you were pouring into him, whether someone considers it too much or not, if you were pouring into him, but this man was matching that energy and pouring right back into you, there'd be a lot less people having something to say. All right. And you would feel less, a ways about it because hell, you'd be getting rewarded. You wouldn't care. And so in being yourself, in pouring in, you'll get to see if he's willing to match your energy or not. But again, I know there's a lot more to that. We'll do another video on that, but let's keep this one going. All right, so now this is another point, and then I got one more bonus point that I want to add. All right, but this one here, when we talk about this whole making him chase you, what I want you to understand is you need to start how you want to finish. So this is what I mean by that. When you look at situations where people are chasing, and let's just say whether it's the man or the woman, because listen, there are women out there chasing after a man. Bottom line, I'm not saying they should be, but they are. And then there are some men chasing after a woman. And what you will typically find is that by starting off on such a lopsided dynamic, the relationship ends up that way. And it may not always end up one-sided as the same person who started off chasing. So sometimes, let's say it's the woman chasing the man. Well, you look deep into that relationship years later, she's still the one doing all the work. All right? Because she started how she's finishing. Sometimes it can flip. But what happens is, and I'll give you an example of how it can flip. So, woman's chasing the man. All right, she reaches a point, she's tired of this, I can't take this anymore. Now she's willing to leave this man. In his panic, he don't want her to go, so now she has successfully flipped the tables, right? And I say successfully not to encourage y'all to do this, to simply say that yes, at this point, he's now fighting so hard to keep her. He is essentially now in the chasing role, okay? And she's saying, yeah, you got to work to keep me. But that still has a shelf life that's very short. He's only going to fight so long. He's only going to put in so much effort. Once he's only doing this thinking, he's chasing thinking, once I reel her back in, we can go back to when she was doing all this stuff for me. All right, in most cases. Once he sees it's not flipping back, oh, he's done. He leaves. Or it reels her in and it does flip back. Either way, the point is, when you start off one-sided, you end one-sided, and the relationship cannot be sustained and successful one-sided. So the goal has to be a mutual effort from the jump. When you sit down with people who are still madly in love with each other, happy, successful relationships, the vast majority, and I say majority because again, there's always exceptions to the rule, but the vast majority will tell you a story where they were both pouring into each other, where neither one had to chase, where they both couldn't wait to talk to each other and be around each other, and they both were willing to express themselves to each other. This is how you have success. This chasing stuff, it's game playing and it's unnecessary. So think about that. When you consider engaging in this kind of dynamic, what are you really setting yourself up for in the long run? All right. So now the bonus. And this is kind of a two-parter. All right. So remember I said there was 3 reasons why a woman is letting a man chase her in, if not all situations, the vast majority. I mentioned you're just not that interested. It's a defense mechanism. And the third thing is you're simply getting bad advice. So there's a lot of you who are just doing what you've been told and doing what people have convinced you makes sense. And here's the thing that people don't explain when it comes to these tips and tricks to get guys to do this or do that or whatever. They're very temporary. So it's like you can do some of these things people mention to make him chase you. But again, you're doing something that invokes a reaction right now, but then he can't sustain it. And so now what you find yourself is in this never-ending cycle of having to try to push certain buttons and trigger him to quote-unquote chase you or to show you more attention or to do this or to miss you or whatever. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting because you don't want to have to constantly do that. And I mean, it's just an unhealthy dynamic to have to be in. So the reality is that you don't want to engage in things that just give you temporary results. You want to ask yourself what's going to give you long-term results. So going back to the bad advice, again, I know that there's some people out there who are well-intentioned, but they're leading you down a path to more problems. And you've got to ask yourself, when you are being given advice, does this really make the relationship better? All right? And also ask yourself, how would I feel if this was being done to me? The reality is that when we are being fed some of these tips and tricks, if we asked ourselves how we would feel if it was turned on us, we wouldn't like it. We would not want this. We would probably say, well, why can't they just talk to us? Why didn't they just let me know? Why do they have to play these games? So then why would you do the same thing? That doesn't make sense. So you got to understand that you got to put away this bad guidance that's only creating more unhealthy situations. And part 2 of this bonus is get God's guidance. You know me. You know I got to throw God in there. God's going to always be a part of it, baby. But listen, So, but really, like you got to, when you're in this mindset of thinking, well, this man should chase me, because again, you know, one of the scriptures that people love to use is he who finds a wife. And they use that to validate the idea that the man should chase. But that scripture is not saying a man's supposed to chase a woman. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say this with confidence. God ain't never told me to chase a woman. Purpose is where my focus is supposed to be. God is where my focus is supposed to be. And I'm supposed to trust him in allowing, like when the woman comes, I'm supposed to be able to seek his guidance and be able to come into alignment with her. You don't have to chase what God sent. That quote doesn't just count for women. It's for men too. Nobody has to chase what God sent. So when there is an individual that you are really into and you're now thinking I have to engage in this game of whether it's chasing or whatever, stop and go talk to God. Does God really want you to do that? Because here's the crazy thing. In you becoming so consumed or concerned with making this man chase or evoke reactions out of him, you've now become distracted by this situation. You've now lost track of what you should be doing. God may have wanted to tell you, don't worry about all that. Go do this, and I'm going to take care of the rest. And you over here trying to control the situation, putting your hands on it in a way that God does not want you to, in a way that's only going to create more mess. Now, this isn't to say that God's never going to tell a woman to, let's say, maybe approach a guy. I know some of y'all don't like that, but that's just real. Like he may lead you to approach. He may lead you to throw a hint. He may lead you to reach out to a man. That's not chasing. Don't confuse that with chasing. All right. So there may be actions you need to take. And of course, for the man, same thing. But the idea of having to chase something, again, going back to early definition, chasing is you're going after something that's showing you resistance. No, in most cases, that's not going to be what God is going to have you do. But I'm not God. So my encouragement to you is to go into prayer, to talk to God, let him speak to your spirit. I have to say this, even if you're not a believer, go within and listen to your inner voice. Remove the outside noise and trust the flow of life at times. We should not be so focused on things we cannot control, and we should not be trying to control people. We should just be seeking to see who we can align with, share life with, and experience an amazing relationship with. Hey, thank you for watching this video. Be sure to check this one out over here on how to make him miss you. Trust me, just watch the video. Game playing of any type is not healthy for a relationship. It's not good. There are consequences. It's not that these tips and tricks that you're hearing on the internet don't work.